Welcome back to another Explainer. So today we're going on a bit of an investigative journey into the hidden dimensions of human experience. We're looking at a really fascinating, highly debated theory. Is our built environment, the concrete, the steel, the invisible waves all around us, quietly shaping our consciousness? Is the modern grid literally draining our energy? Let's dive right in and find out. Let's start with a mystery that honestly most of us feel right in our bones. Think about it. Why does stepping into a dense green forest feel like a total breath of fresh air for your mind? It's like an instant reset button. But then, standing in the middle of a concrete jungle leaves us feeling completely wiped out. Well, it's not just some romantic nostalgia for the wild. There is an actual, tangible biological shift happening when we cross that boundary from the natural world into the artificial one. So we really have to ask ourselves, is this massive epidemic of chronic fatigue, anxiety, and just general urban burnout simply because of our busy schedules? Or is there something more foundational going on? Like, is the sensory overload, the noise, and the rigid geometry of the city silently driving this exhaustion? Because our brains evolved to process natural landscapes, right? Not a relentless barrage of synthetic stimuli. Today, we're peeling back the layers of our everyday surroundings. We're going to look at established environmental psychology, architectural engineering, and yes, even some of the more emerging, speculative theories out there about biofields and frequencies. We want to see if our modern architectural grid is fundamentally at odds with human biology, and maybe more importantly, how we can reclaim our spaces. Okay, the urban disconnect, sensory overload, and the concrete grid. To really understand this, we first have to look at established environmental psychology, specifically a concept called directed attention. When you're navigating a hyper-urbanized space, dodging traffic, tuning out flashing billboards, walking on jagged concrete, your brain is basically sprinting on a treadmill. It severely depletes your directed attention. But nature provides what researchers call soft fascination. It effortlessly engages our minds, acting almost like a cool-down period for our prefrontal cortex. Nature deficit disorder. This is a state of heightened irritability, anxiety, and diminished empathy resulting from a psychological disconnect from natural landscapes. When urban planners completely ignore our evolutionary need for natural fractals and that soft fascination we just talked about, we suffer the consequences. Researchers actually coined this term, nature deficit disorder. It turns out when we're disconnected from nature, our psychological baseline shifts from relaxed to highly defensive. Here we see high-density concrete leading to a flattened cortisol profile, meaning chronic stress, compared to a biophilic environment showing a healthy, rhythmic decline in stress hormones. This isn't just a subjective feeling, guys. It is hard, measurable biology. Established neurourbanism research shows a stark physiological contrast. People living in harsh, high-density concrete zones have flattened cortisol profiles, meaning their bodies are stuck in this chronic, low-grade stress loop all day long. But folks in biophilic environments, surrounded by trees and water, they show a healthy, normal decline in stress hormones. The architecture itself is acting as a biological regulator. 140%. Now, this biological regulation scales up to impact entire communities. It's incredible. Integrating natural environments into urban design acts as a massive catalyst for social capital. Research actually shows that neighborhoods with integrated green corridors experience a staggering 140% higher rate of neighbor-to-neighbor recognition. Think about that. When people feel comfortable and restored by their environment, their defensive barriers just drop. They trust each other more. Nature is literally the invisible fabric holding urban societies together. The threshold of natural exposure. We need a minimum 25% green view index to prevent urban exhaustion. Diverse ecosystems outperform flat lawns, and biophilic buffer zones protect community cohesion. The crucial takeaway here is that we can actually quantify what we need. Researchers have identified this threshold. To maintain psychological resilience, a city needs at least a 25% green view index. That's literally the amount of nature you can see right out your window. And by the way, a flat, sterile patch of grass won't cut it. Diverse, multisensory ecosystems perform drastically better than monoculture lawns. These biophilic buffer zones actually protect community peace during high-stress events like heat waves. The Faraday Cage Effect. This is an enclosure made of conductive material that blocks external electromagnetic fields, turning modern buildings into black holes for wireless signals. Now, the visual environment is just one layer of the grid. Let's look at the structural layer. Have you ever noticed your cell service just magically dropping the second you walk into a brand new, eco-friendly apartment building? Well, that's the Faraday Cage Effect in action. The very materials engineered to make our buildings incredibly strong and energy efficient are inadvertently turning them into black holes for wireless signals, completely blocking out external electromagnetic fields. Modern building materials blocking signals. Structural steel drops it by 32 to 50 decibels. Dense concrete loses 31 decibels, and low-E glass loses 24 to 40 decibels. The numbers behind this are absolutely wild. Structural steel causes a massive 32 to 50 decibel signal loss. To put that into perspective, a 30 decibel drop means 99.9% of the signal power is just gone. Dense, rebar-reinforced concrete, there goes another 31 decibels. Even that fancy low-E glass used in green buildings is coated in microscopic metal that literally bounces radio frequencies away. It's the great paradox of modern sustainable architecture. These highly attenuating materials are completely sealing us off, not just from the weather, but from the invisible frequencies of the outside world. Are our own apartments turning us into literal hermits? The invisible wireless web 6G and terahertz radiation. Because our buildings block those outside signals, we've had to fill the insides with an incredibly dense artificial wireless web just to compensate. And as we push past current tech, we're encountering the dawn of 6G and terahertz radiation. Now here's where our explainer takes a fascinating turn into emerging, and I want to stress, highly speculative science. Researchers are just beginning to probe what might happen to human biology when we're bathed in these new ultra-high indoor frequencies 24/7. Emerging research on cellular impacts. Non-ionizing radiation is everywhere indoors. Preliminary THZ studies are looking at membrane alterations, and there are indications of cellular shifts that need more research. Consensus absolutely demands deeper safety evaluations. Mainstream science is definitely still out on these speculative theories. However, some exploratory studies are pointing out that since non-ionizing radiation is literally ubiquitous indoors, we need to ask big questions. Preliminary studies into terahertz frequencies are looking at potential alterations to cellular membranes, and some even hint at shifts in how cells specialize. Again, these aren't established facts yet, but this emerging frontier raises some incredibly vital questions about our biological resilience in these heavily engineered spaces. Beyond the physical, the biofield hypothesis. To truly grasp the debate over how subtle environmental factors might influence biology, we have to venture into the frontiers of speculative agricultural research, specifically the biofield hypothesis. This framework, which is actually acknowledged by some integrative health centers, suggests that living organisms are surrounded and permeated by subtle, low-level energy matrices. So, could human intention or specific subtle energies actually alter biological growth? Let's look at this data. We have the control group versus the treated group across germination, plant height, leaf number, and fruit yield. Look at those massive increases. Now, while we definitely have to distinguish this from established physics, controlled experiments on okra offer a pretty mind-bending perspective. When researchers applied a non-invasive, spiritual blessing energy treatment, basically a directed biofield intervention, the treated group saw germination jump to almost 93%. Leaf numbers absolutely exploded by over 53%, and the overall fruit yield went up by nearly 28%. The treated plants didn't just grow, they thrived on a fundamentally different level. Looking at these side-by-side developmental stages, you can actually observe the distinct physical differences. Just notice the sheer structural expansion, the deeper leaf pigmentation, and the robust branching in the biofield-treated plants on the right. Whether you view this through the lens of esoteric energy or just unexplained plant plasticity, it strongly implies that biology might respond to invisible environmental forces far more deeply than we currently understand. Earth resonance and intrinsic brain activity. Let's bring this all back to human physiology. If subtle energy can alter a plant, what happens when humans physically reconnect with the Earth's natural energy? Fascinating research reveals that our planet emits a natural electrical field called the Schumann resonance. And incredibly, real-time EEG studies have shown that the human brain can actually synchronize with this resonance, creating a measurable coherence in the parahippocampal gyrus roughly every 30 seconds. I think of grounding as hitting a reset button, a chance for a pause that brings clarity into focus. This earth-to-brain ping happens in the exact area of the brain responsible for spatial awareness and contextual meaning. It provides a measurable neurological explanation for the benefits of grounding. You know, the simple act of touching your bare skin to the earth. Medical literature shows that grounding dramatically reduces the inflammatory cytokines that drain our dopamine. It truly is like hitting a reset button. But when we're insulated by rubber shoes and thick concrete floors all day, we are completely cut off from this planetary microguidance. Reclaiming human-centered spaces, resonance architecture. So, what's the solution? How do we fix this? The resolution to our urban exhaustion lies in a newly emerging framework called resonance architecture. Now, the goal here is not to just abandon modern cities and run off to the woods, but to intelligently restore our natural biological baseline. Resonance architecture intentionally damps down the artificial noise that depletes us and amplifies the natural coherence that sustains us. The PRP Design Protocol. Step 1. Relocate Wi-Fi routers away from where you sleep. Step 2. Implement a morning light protocol. Step 3. Integrate green spaces and natural materials. Let's look at the practical application here. By taking these evidence-based steps, we can curate environments that actually support our vitality. First, actively manage your electromagnetic field history by getting active transformers and Wi-Fi routers out of your immediate sleeping zone to allow for deeper cellular repair. Seriously, stop letting your router fight with your sleep cycle. Second, use morning sunlight to naturally normalize those cortisol rhythms we talked about earlier. And third, aggressively integrate natural biophilic materials into the places you work and live.
When we fit these pieces together, fusing environmental psychology with sustainable urban planning directly supports functional human restoration. By balancing restorative environments, sustainable urbanism, and human psychology, architecture transitions from merely housing us to actively healing us. We construct spaces that inherently lower our defenses and raise our communal trust. The future of bio-based electronics. Sustainable spintronics, manufactured with iron and cellulose, encapsulated in natural beeswax and fully biodegradable. We don't have to sacrifice our technology for our health. The development of eco-sustainable, bio-based electronics proves this for sure. An international research team has actually successfully printed magnetic field sensors using iron, cellulose, and natural beeswax. Yes, literally beeswax. They function just as well as commercial sensors, but they are fully biodegradable. This proves we can absolutely maintain our technological advancement without wrapping our living spaces in toxic synthetic materials that pollute our environment and block natural signals. As we synthesize the established science of biophilia, the realities of architectural signal blocking, and the speculative frontiers of Earth resonance and biofields, we are forced to confront a really massive question. Just how deeply does the physical grid we've constructed dictate our internal mental state? If concrete spikes our cortisol and natural fractals boost our trust, then our buildings are not passive containers, they're active participants in our consciousness. If our environment influences how we think, feel, and live, then perhaps the design of our cities is not merely an architectural question, but a question about the future of human experience itself. The evidence we've explored today strongly suggests that redesigning our built environment to align with our biology isn't just some aesthetic luxury for the wealthy. It is the fundamental foundation required to safeguard the future of human consciousness and connection. We simply cannot expect a flourishing, empathetic society if we plant ourselves in environments designed to drain us. Thank you so much for joining this explainer. I really hope it has fundamentally shifted how you view the walls around you. Please comment your thoughts below, subscribe to the Cosmic Librarian, and enable notifications so you never miss a deep dive. But before you go, ask yourself, if the buildings we shape are secretly shaping our minds, what kind of reality are we constructing for tomorrow? Keep exploring and stay grounded.